Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Ask an Atheist. Now, we don't always have an atheist. Sometimes we have somebody who will defend a theist position, but tonight we do have a genuine atheist. We've got the person who trades on Twitter under the name of Atheist Dad. So he's outed as an atheist. He's not in the closet. And his real name is Andy Burrows, and he'll be with us in just a few minutes. In the meantime, I want to reveal that I don't even call myself an atheist. It's an aggressive word. It's antagonistic. It's saying, I think I'm right and you're stupid. So that's why I don't call myself an atheist. I prefer the description non-believer, because I'm not sure that there can be such a thing as 100% atheist. In fact, even Richard Dawkins, who's got a 7-point scale for atheism, only classifies himself as a 6.9. And this is because, in my view, probably in his too, it's impossible to eliminate the claim or the possibility that there is a God, a creator, deity somewhere. And the reason behind this is what we know of the universe. It's so enormous, so unimaginably enormous, that it's unsearchable. We couldn't possibly look everywhere and eliminate that there's no God under this next stone or planet that we discover. So, and to make matters worse, some theists claim that their God is A, immaterial, so how do we look for him? And B, outside the universe. Well, where is that exactly? So given that we can't eliminate the possibility, remote though it is, that there is a creator deity lurking somewhere, and given that it's a nasty word, people have associated all sorts of horrible things with the word atheist, baby eating, not having a purpose, being immoral, all that nonsense. I don't want anything to do with it. But it would be stupid to deny the existence of the word atheist. That's why it's in the name of this show. Anyway, enough of me rabbiting. Andy can join us. How the devil are you, Andy?
I'm fine. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, I'm fine too. Thank you. Yeah, you've got a good picture there, and I can hear you. Speak again, please, and we'll see whether your volume is loud enough.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. You're not very loud. Can you get a bit closer to your microphone, maybe?
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're loud and clear now. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. Great. Well, I was just talking to our small but, delightful audience and explaining that I don't actually like the word atheist. I don't call myself an atheist. I get called an atheist a lot, but, other people like to tag you or badge you with their word, which, maybe not what we want to accept as a description of us. So what do you think? You go out on Twitter unashamedly as Atheist Dad. So you're comfortable with the word. Is that the case?
I am, yes. But for me, atheism, or to call myself an atheist, is just almost like a tag. It's a way to let people know how I feel and think. But for me, atheism really is just a state of mind. It doesn't actually exist as such. It's just so people can identify with me. Right.
Yeah. Pandering to their description of you.
Indeed.
So when I use the word atheist, I like to put a hyphen in it, so it's a theist, so that it makes it clearer what it actually means, which is just without a God.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we can deny a God. It just means that we're personally lacking belief in a God.
Yeah,
So
you can't deny.
no, you can't. You can't. Who's your story, the atheist that you are today? Were you? I mean, I'm assuming that, like everyone, you were born an atheist. But what happened next?
Obviously, I was born. My parents, they were not into pushing any particular belief on me. I think we'll call them secular. Never really taken to church apart from at Christmas time for the carols and weddings and dispatches. So really, from a young age, I was never forced is probably the wrong word, but I never had any belief or faith put upon me. It was just really a case of go along and do what you think. And as a child, I quickly learned to discover dinosaurs, which was a big thing for me as a child. I had a friend who liked dinosaurs. We traded them, we played with them, and naturally you learn about them and the time scales, 65 million years. And when you compare what you hear at school, you tend to think something's not really matching up here. And then after that came science. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've had a good science education, it's difficult really to have a belief at the same time. That would require some sort of dual brain cognitive dissonance, I think we'd call that.
I saw a question come across there saying, have you experienced God? There we go. I don't know. Considering, I don't know what God is, I wouldn't know if I'd come across God or not. For me, experiencing things that are different give you a feeling of, if you want to call it enlightenment, then yes, I have, but it's usually in a laboratory or it's been in a science book or watching science fiction.
Yeah, what would the experience of God actually be? How would you recognize this experience as being of God? So you mentioned science. Is that your line of work?
It has been quite most of my life, really, from an early age. I obviously went and got a degree, went to work in university, handled radioactive chemicals and dangerous chemicals and things that could kill you. But mainly I stayed within the food industry doing product development, using the science background. But I've been involved with science now all my life, really, right up to this day, where the company I'm working for, we work with academia to make projects happen, and new technology. So it's quite an interesting role.
Yeah. Science can do such a great thing, can't it, with discovery and new, as you say, new technology. We're using it now, aren't we? This is amazing. The ability to communicate and from anywhere to anywhere, using, I don't know what, satellites and cables under the sea to join us together. Yeah.
Indeed.
So in your case, since you it doesn't seem that you were properly indoctrinated, as it were, as a child, you didn't really have a faith to lose. You didn't have to sort of burrow your way out.
No, that's very true. I think there was one time when my father passed away. I was 8 years old, and I knew about Christianity because school was in many ways pushing it. But yet, after my father passed away, I do remember asking myself, why did God let this happen? If God is real, of course. And then followed by other people saying, only the good die young. And the logic, it just wasn't there, and nothing worked. And I've never really looked back.
Yes. So
got a question there.
here's Mike Peacock. He's saying, I remember being called stupid for asking a perfectly legitimate question in religious education in my early school years. So I'm not surprised. We hear a lot of people who, because of course the theist, whoever's, whether it's a priest or a pastor or a religious teacher, they can't answer questions. And so they want to deflect them. And one way of doing that is by calling the questioner stupid.
That's wrong.
Yeah, I believe you've got quite strong views about education and where religion fits into it.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at it. I mean, we have to be honest. We have to thank Christianity for kind of helping us establish science and education. And I'll put my head to that and say, thank you for starting it off.
Yes.
I won't say it now, because now you've got. If I take my own example, I've got children who have had to go to a faith school. It's not really a faith school, but a voluntary one, Church of England.
Yes.
But they've had to go to lessons where they've been told that there's this man called Jesus was real and God and that and they have to attend a morning assembly or which is collective worship basically. And compared to what they have been through, one of my children especially was told he was told he would have to pray at school, which was like a red flag to a bull when I found out about it. I'm going to compare that to my own schooling, where I told the teachers, I don't believe in God, and they were really nice. They said, instead of collective worship, go and stand at the back of at the front of the hall and be the projectionist boy to the hymns. But yeah, for me, education, when you have got an option to put your children, children have to go to a church school as such, it is wrong, and it's wrong on many levels. Christianity doesn't have any right. Let's face it, it's a minority belief in this country now, anyway. So it shouldn't be force fed, and that's really my thoughts.
Yes, they've got privileges still, though, haven't they? I'm a retired science teacher, I don't know if you knew, but I taught in a Roman Catholic school for a while. And it was quite uncomfortable because most of the other staff were devout Roman Catholics. I don't know how I snuck in. I might have been doing some supply work or something. They were desperate. But it was noticeable how one of the chemistry teachers, at the end of his lesson with, was it a year 7 class, I think, he stood up and tried to get them all to join him in saying the Lord's Prayer at the end of a chemistry lesson.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They didn't acquiesce to it. In fact, most of them started walking out. But that was what he was trying to do. Chemistry, he's studied science and he's still trying to flog this snake oil.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, for me, my perspective is education, which is for primary age children, 3 to 11 or 5 to 11, depending where you live. The church is heavily influenced there for quite a lot of children, and I do think it's just there for indoctrination, for getting into children's minds while they're still malleable and haven't decided, which direction they're going in. I mean, thankfully, I think the Education Act in 1944 took church or religion out of the curriculum for 11 plus, which is a good thing. But still, it's there.
Yeah. Well, every religion seems to have an attempt to indoctrinate children. They don't go out and try and specifically target adults. They don't. They got to get you when you're young, so that you grow up in it, and then they can target you as an adult. It's very
Indeed.
difficult to convert adults who are already adult.
Yeah.
But the good news is, in Wales, they've just passed an act. In fact, the Queen has just signed it. It was a bill, so now it's an act. And it says that the religious curriculum, because it's called RE at the moment, religious education, and it's always been about the major faith. Well, I say always, in recent years, it's been about the major faiths, but it's now from September 2022, it will have to include humanism as an equal option for the children to learn about. That's good, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. Go on, Wales. I'm glad I live here.
Well, we're hoping that the rest of the UK will catch up soon. Anyway, what about other views? How do you feel about morality? Because what's happening in Wales is the subject's being renamed religion, ethics, and there's a third strand to it, which I can't remember what it's called. But it's now got 3 letters, R and E and something else. And it presumably it will cover morality, because social education will be part of the curriculum. So what's your position about morality? Because a lot of people I argue with online, they tell me I'm a heathen or I'm immoral because I don't have their particular book as the source of my ethics, my morality. What do you think?
What do I think? I think religion hangs on to morality as a way of justifying itself. Realistically, morality is an act, a set of behaviours that you would expect from any species. I don't just mean humans, animals too. So to think that a god or a faith or a belief or whatever you want to call it has any justification to claim it is driving moral standards is completely wrong. Yes, you can use religion and put morals in there, but they pre-exist. They're just adopting and plagiarized, if you want to call it. So yeah, I would argue strongly against anybody who claims morality is driven from religion, because it clearly is not. And there's no.
They're stealing it. They want it as an exclusive possession, which is ridiculous, because if you look at their so-called sources of morality, their scriptures, they're not very moral. The God of the Bible committed genocide. He exterminated everybody by drowning except for Noah and his family. So I wouldn't want to follow that example. And of course, the very fact that there are other religions with different moralities, Islam is very different in its moral attitudes. It favors, it seems to encourage horrible acts like cutting off of hands and stoning to death of female adulterers, not male ones, of course, female ones. So which of these so-called morality sources is the correct one? Just there's no way it can make sense.
No.
Ghost Drag 3 says, would you classify religion as a cult? What's a cult?
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose you could say yes, really. Like you say, it depends on what you would call a cult. I would say religion is probably more widespread, more organised, but that would be a more ingrained within day-to-day life as such, where a cult is probably more separate, as a separate group. But I would actually call it a cult, though, personally.
It seems to me that a cult is like a smaller version of a religion.
Yeah.
The religion's more mainstream, and the cult is more insular.
Yeah.
And a cult is is something for others, isn't it? I mean, I don't know many people who would claim that they are in a cult. They point at somebody else and say, that's a cult, he's in a cult, but it's not something that they want to acknowledge belongs to them. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, like you say, it's just the size and number of so-called believers of that cult.
Mm. It's okay when it gets to be mainstream, it doesn't need to be called a cult anymore.
No, it's popular.
Now, you mentioned that your father died, sadly, when you were quite young.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't suppose you believe in an afterlife.
Good question. It's difficult for me to answer because my mother had an experience. I had an experience too after his death, which kind of made me wonder. But if you was to ask me black and white, I would say no, I don't believe in afterlife. But I definitely could not possibly say it's not real, because as a young child, the experience that I thought I had, I could have actually imagined and maybe wanted it to happen. And when you think of all these religious experiences people have, near-death experiences, then maybe there is a potential for it to happen. The mind is a strange thing, and it can make you do different things and strange things at the same time. So I would say no.
I would say no too. I think there's no evidence for such a thing. And yes, there are near-death experiences, but the medical explanation for that is it's what the brain does when it's short of oxygen. It goes into dream mode. Mm.
Yeah, and I think with my dad's death, it was a huge shock as an 8-year-old. So yeah, maybe my mind was possibly thinking things that I wanted it to think.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Well, a death of a close relative or friend is a shock, and we don't like it, and we would prefer a nicer explanation. And the idea that we meet up again later in some heaven is very, very attractive.
Yeah, but not for a lifetime.
Well, for eternity, even.
Yeah, exactly.
The stoning to death, this is Dented Dog. The stoning to death and barbarism of Sharia law exists under almost every Abrahamic religion. Islam is not unique in its law. Yeah, I guess that could be true. I'm not an expert on all the Abrahamic religions, but I know that Christianity has been much more horrifying, heinous, toxic in the past. It seems to be quite moderate now, but back in the Middle Ages, or more recently than that, it was probably as brutal as Islam currently is. Yeah. So what's your view on the origins then? Because one of the claims that a lot of religions make is that they know the answer to questions like where everything came from, how it started. What do you think?
Oh, it's such a crap, isn't it, really? And that's, we shouldn't have said that, I know, but for them to make those claims is just, it's untrue. Simply because we know it's untrue. I mean, the evidence they have is nothing. Yet when we look around, even if you take planetary formation, we can look up into space, and we can see planets forming around protostars. There's no hand of God there. There's no magic, no 7-day appearance of a planet. It takes time and gravity, as we all know. As for origins of life, I mean, just look at our genetics and how we can trace ourselves right back, to different species, back to a time when we were single-cell creatures almost, and maybe splitting off plant kingdom one way, animal kingdom the other way. We've got that evidence there to support it. There's no ribs. There's just nothing there for that. So yeah, they can claim what they like, and they just can't back it up.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I like to think of it as back in the in the Stone Age, when early man, fairly recently evolved, it must have lived in the present. We didn't really have any way of recording yesterday, or maybe even thinking back to how things might have got the way they were, but he then learned a few things and started thinking more deeply. And so the wonder came in. And now, of course, we've managed to unravel the mechanism behind, as you said, DNA, and explain the passage of the ancestral forms visible today in the fossil record. But and the same for the stars. Yes, you as you said, know a bit about cosmology now. We know how planets formed and everything. But there's still a gap, isn't there? There's a little bit at the real beginning that we haven't crossed yet. We haven't found an explanation for, either for the very beginning of life. We've traced it all the way back to unicellular creatures, to primitive algae, or even earlier things than that. And we've traced the cosmos back to the Big Bang. But there's still that little bit that we haven't solved. And that's where they make their claim of knowledge without any evidence.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easy answer, though, isn't it? It is the easy way out. Yeah. What can you say, really? It isn't true.
Everybody likes to have an explanation. The expression ignorance is bliss is wrong. It's not. We want to have a solution. We want to have closure to our wonderings. We need to know, because it's only knowledge is the safe position to be in. If you don't know, you're fearful that something that you don't understand might be out to get you.
Yeah, I don't know. I in a way disagree. I think what we don't know is the exciting part of what we do as a species, especially look at it from a scientific point of view. The desire to learn is really strong in us as a species, as you know, and it's what's driven us to the top of the food chain. It's why we're sat here now. And to pretend to know, for me, is just not. It's not right. It's not good. And it doesn't get you anywhere. Trying to think of a different way of putting it slightly, but without science and what our people do, we'd be still stuck in a cave.
We would, yes, with all the myths and legends and unreasonable beliefs that go with that ignorance. Yes, indeed. So another thing that especially Christians, the evangelicals, especially in America, like to get involved in is the moral or ethical aspects of issues like abortion. They like to pretend that if you favor abortion, who favors abortion? They like to pretend that you're either pro or anti-abortion. Nobody's pro-abortion. It's it's not something that anybody wants. What's your feeling?
I mean, abortion. Sometimes it's just needed. Some people it might not be the right time for them. Bringing up a baby at a time that would not be good, and they couldn't give the child the best. Through to that 14-year-old girl who's been raped, and forced to give birth, or because of, maybe she's forced to have it aborted, should I say, and all because of somebody's belief in a deity that doesn't exist. It's nuts. Abortion is a personal choice that's based on situation and the people directly involved. It's nothing to do with a God.
And nothing to do with other people either, the God believers. should have no influence over the decision that the pregnant girl makes. And to my way of thinking, the major reason that abortion is necessary is because religious people disapprove of birth out of wedlock.
Hmm.
In the modern world, where a lot of people don't bother to get married, I forget what the figures are, but something like 40% of us these days just live together without going through a priestly conducted ceremony. So in that case, of course, all of the children, according to the religious people, would be bastards. It's their thinking. It's their denigrating what is a natural process of breeding that drives people to losing a baby. In many cases, obviously, there are a few medical reasons. Sometimes it's to save the life of the would-be mother, but a lot of the cases for social reasons that women are driven to abort their fetus. Very sad.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask our audience if they've got any more questions for us. And then I'm going to promote my next move in life, because I don't know if you know, I was the publications director of Atheist Alliance International for a number of years, until January, when I thought about it for a while and decided to resign. These are not decisions that you make at the flick of a finger. You don't flounce out and slam the door. You consider the pros and cons, at least I do. And I decided that I'd had a good time with Atheist Alliance International, but it had been a bit of an uncomfortable birth for me, because I don't call myself an atheist. But I came to the conclusion that I had another opportunity which was more attractive to me. And so I left in the middle of February, finally. And the last work I did for Atheist Alliance International is published actually in Patheos. You know the Patheos website?
Know it well.
Well, I had a blog on there called Secular World, which is one of my email addresses. And the last, you'll see if you go there to Secular World at patheos.com, you'll see that my last blog is dated, I think it's February the 15th. So I moved on, and I'm starting a new venture. And I want to give you a taste of it. You're going to be one of the first people to see what this is. Okay. So I'll share a screen with you. Let me just get it up. Where are we? Here we go. Right, share the screen. Play the video. Here we go. Welcome to Free Thought City. I'm John, your tour guide. Let's take a walk down Main Street. In this old part of town is the Chit Chat Coffee Bar. You can meet like-minded people in there. Look, there's the 1930s Verdian cinema. I wonder what's showing. That's right. And now we're coming to the art gallery. The next exhibition could be yours. Just past that is the modern concert theatre. If you're a musician, you can perform there. And if you're a music lover, you can attend live performances with your friends. Now we're crossing the river to the residential quarter, where you can actually build your own zone. You can win a tour on the river or kayak yourself. You can go out of town together. See over in the distance? That's Mount Rationalmore. It's a fantastic place, Free Thought City. You can meet kindred spirits and do things together. It's a haven. What's the limit? Just your imagination. What do you think of that?
Good. I think I want to move there.
You're stunned, I can tell. Yeah, well, this is a vision that I've had with a couple of other people in different parts of the world. I've got the musician who did the soundtrack for that is Australian, and the web developer is in California. But yeah, it's just a wonder of the internet, isn't it? So, and it ties in actually with Painted Dog's latest comment. Look at this. What is your proposed solution to a lack of religion in community, and what you lose from that? Things like lack of community and meaning. And yes, Dented Dog, you're right, particularly in America, where pretty much everybody is brought up in a religion, so they do have to sort of tunnel their way out of it. And that means losing quite a lot, losing their society, losing their family, losing their friends. Sometimes it makes it difficult for them to get employment or accommodation. So they've got to stay in a closet, not come out as atheists. And that's a lonely situation to be in. So Free Thought City is an attempt to replace that missing community online.
Okay.
We're going to have pretty much anything that you can do in a real city, you'll be able to do at Free Thought City. I'm a phlegmatic Brit, you know. I don't get excited, but I'm quite excited by this. It's coming along nicely. We've got a launch coming up soon, a soft launch with Lawrence Krauss, who's going to do a book signing online for us as the opening event. And I don't want to reveal the date yet, but assuming it's confirmed, it'll be very soon, like next week.
Okay.
So that's where I'm going now. That's my new drive. That's why I've got the logo in the top right corner of this screen. You see the logo up there. Yep. So what is it? What? Sorry.
What is your main aim for doing or making Free Thought City?
It's to catch a wider population of people than atheists. I think atheists is a very niche market, and that's why a lot of people don't call themselves atheists. They prefer to call themselves free thinkers or humanists, especially in parts of the world where religion is prevalent. They don't want to identify as the hard atheist. They prefer to call themselves by the name humanist or free thinker or secularist or something, which doesn't sound so nasty. So we're trying to provide something for them, some sort of facility where they can meet up, do things together, go to shows in a watch party, relate like we're doing to each other on the screen in a breakout video. So they can be there, but chatting. You see what I mean? When we've got it working, it would be easier for people to visualize. But at the moment,
I'm with you.
Great.
I'm with you on that. I know where you're coming from.
Excellent. We're planning that you will be able to build your own house in Free Thought City. Yeah. So we're trying to make it as like reality as possible, a fully immersive experience.
Okay, will you have social distance?
No. Everybody will be distanced by being in front of their own computer and miles from the next nearest person.
Okay.
This is a virtual city, but it's coming along nicely. I'm looking forward to getting more of it done.
Interested to check it out when it goes live.
Yeah. Well, we will be doing our best to promote it at that time.
Mhm.
So, what else have we got to talk about? Oh yeah, next week on my show, we've got another guest whose name is Tim Sledge. He's somebody who also appears a lot on Twitter, and he's an author of a book called Goodbye Jesus, because he's an American who did the thing I've just described. You know, he got indoctrinated or inducted at least as a child, and then he got more and more involved in, I think, evangelism, to such an extent that he was a pastor. He did about, I don't know, find out next week, he did about 30 years as a pastor, and then I think about 10 years ago he saw the dark and escaped his faith. Wrote his book Goodbye Jesus, and does quite a lot of work on Twitter, like you do.
Okay, good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you can follow him. He's prevalent on Twitter. I've got a theory that says the people who got most involved in the religion, when they leave it, they become the most militant atheists, because they've got agreements. You know, they've wasted some of their life, and so they want to strike out. Whereas people like you and I, who never really got deeply involved, my parents weren't interested in religion, so I only met it at school, and so we're the moderate atheists, if you like, rather than the fundamental atheists.
Yeah.
But people like Tim Sledge, who's coming on the show next week, he's definitely very anti-religion.
Okay. Well, good. I mean, I try to be balanced because I think it's unfair. I prefer to focus more on the institution rather than the individual. Especially, you see my tweets. I really do like to call out, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, for the priests who are abusing children. They stand in front of their flock, praising God's moral standards, and yet, behind the scenes, not all of them clearly, but there's an element of them who go around abusing children, and then they get protection from the top of the tree. Move to different parishes. It's just it's sickening, to be honest. And I think that is one of the reasons. If you look at trends for different faiths in the UK, Christianity is dropping off it's falling below, certainly below non-believer secularism, that sort of thing. And I won't be surprised if that is driven by how the church behaves and the uncaring attitude it has towards its flock. It's just they're looking for money, from my perspective.
This is very noticeable in Ireland, of course, which was heavily Roman Catholic 50 years ago, and now, thanks to the paedophile priests, is dropping the religion like a stone. And you live in Wales. I noticed that last week there was a case where a Welsh vicar, probably would be his title, was he was prosecuted for looking at obscene images of children on his boys, I think, on his computer.
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't do the reputation of the church any good, does it?
It
So
doesn't.
do you think that religion is entirely harmful, or can you see any good in it at all?
It's not entirely harmful. I mean, as I keep on saying to all my Twitter followers, we've got to be thankful for some elements of it. It helped us drag ourselves out of the gutter, especially just after Constantine decided to allow it to flourish in Rome as such, and it spread. But we do have to thank it for some of the standards and morals. I know we had that discussion earlier on, but it has pulled them together. But you have to sit back and look and see the division and the hatred it causes, and look from a different perspective. And these days now, in this modern age where information is there, it's just on your hand, fingertips.
Yes.
Religion, it's not it is a poison in many ways, but it needs to be taken from its pedestal as some sort of leading thing in the UK that deserves to have power and privilege, as you say, and it should be put back. It should be put back where it belongs, which is a personal choice, out of education, not out of education, but not forced as education, but out of government, and if people want to go and pray to Jesus, God, whichever one they want, Pastafarian if you want, take your tin hat and that and some meatballs, then you're free to do that. Me personally, I'd rather go and get my camera out or play with the kids off, go and look at the stars with a telescope and then go to the church for sure.
Yeah. Yes, I know astronomy is one of your hobbies, isn't
it? Yes, yeah. It's.
Do you have a big?
I have.
You have a large telescope.
I've got 4 altogether.
4.
I've got. Yeah. The largest I've got is an 8-inch reflector, so it's quite big. It's not as big as some have, but as I say, sometimes size doesn't always matter.
You can do quite a lot with a pair of binoculars, can't you?
You can do, yes. Yeah, I mean, binoculars are a great starting point. I mean, I was 9 years old, and I begged my mum to death for her to buy me a telescope. And eventually she did. And I've been hooked ever since.
Does it keep you up at night?
I've got past that bit now. It depends on the clouds. I've just recently decided to really give astrophotography a go, so that is keeping me up a little bit. But the weather's in Wales typically it's a bit wetter and rainy, so
yes, a lot of clouds.
No luck there.
But it's a wonderful science. We've learned a lot from it, even from the days when we could only use our eyes. We were able to learn quite a lot then. And the developments at the moment with helicopter on Mars, that's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. It's crazy. It's a shame. Back in the 80s, we kind of stopped pushing space exploration. We should have kept going, but we decided not to, and then put the ball up again.
Yeah. Well, back then, of course, it was an attempt to show off the power of your country's technology. It was in the Cold War. It was an attempt to show that we're better than you. But now it's commercial. Now it's can we sell you a seat on our rocket? Yeah. So there's a different driving force now altogether.
Yeah, I tell you what I would do. If I was rich enough, I would probably pay for several prominent flat earthers and put them on a rocket into space, and ask them to explain to me how the Earth is possibly flat when they viewed it with their own eyes.
Yes, and flown rock.
I should do a GoFundMe page for that.
Yes, that would be a good campaign to do. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, I'm thinking that I will just sign off now and let you take the rest of your day to recuperate from this horrific experience.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Really.
I'd like to thank everybody watching and everybody who watches in future when it becomes a podcast shortly after this. And I'd like to thank you, Andy, for your conversation with me. And I'd like to remind people that next week we've got Tim Sledge, Goodbye Jesus, author. So join us at the same time at the same place to watch that. Set your notifications and like and share and all that stuff. And here we go with Andy's outro. Bye-bye, Andy.
Okay.
It was the wrong outro.